All right, so why do you feel lost as a programmer? Why do you feel lost in life, like you have no direction? Or it seems like something's standing in your way? This happens to a lot of people, and I want to talk about it. And it's one of the reasons why I create a bunch of videos like these, where I talk about burnout, building good habits, the issue of tutorial hell, job security, advice to all programmers, and is it time to quit programming? And then the one that's always on people's minds, Imposter Syndrome. And probably the biggest one that impacts everybody is the conversation of layoffs, particularly to AI. And this is the last one right here. I know I mentioned burnout already, but this is burnout because of ecosystem overload. There's always a new framework or library coming out for JavaScript. All right, so let's talk about this. Taking a look around, good to go. All right, so this issue is a big issue within the programming field, within the programming community, in the content creation community, and pretty much all over. And the reason is because we sometimes feel lost in our way. And it seems like we need direction. This is like where I typically would try to insert a joke and it wouldn't go well. I would probably like scream outside, I'm lost, I need directions. And yeah, that would have worked too well. Especially since we all have Google Maps and navigation systems, right? All right, so anyway, let me get back to the topic. So this is an issue that impacts a lot of people in terms of their feeling of lack of direction, their feeling of inadequacies in terms of where they are. Are they good enough to be a programmer or a content creator? Or are they good enough to continue working in their field? Is artificial intelligence coming for their jobs? Does it even make sense to continue in this field because of all the automation with AI taking place? The existential questions of what is the meaning of it all? These are things that pretty much bounce around in our brains all day long. And sometimes they keep us up at night and we wonder, is what we're doing making any difference at all? You know, we take a look at it and we see that a lot of people are entering our same types of fields. With all the tools that exist, it seems like almost anybody can do what we're doing. At least that's what we believe. You know, and this goes into the whole entire concept of imposter syndrome. Are you good enough? And then it also goes into the topic of, if you're just getting started in programming, is there even going to be a field for you to work in 5-10 years down the line? Does this make sense? So it's easy to understand why people feel like they're lost in life, and especially programmers, because you hear about every single day a brand new code generation tool that is getting better and better and better at code. And this is my secret right here. Lots of coffee. Now the thing is, it's easy to feel that way. It's easy to feel like your contributions may not matter. It's easy to feel like what you're doing may not make much of a difference. But the reality is that you're needed. I mean, I know you might be feeling burnt out with all the news, with all the headlines, with all the fear-mongering that's taking place out there in terms of all the automation taking place and all the layoffs taking place. It's all because of AI, and that's it. It's over. And I've said it on this channel a bunch of times, especially when talking about artificial intelligence. It is an amazing tool. It's a pair programmer. It's not your replacement, as long as you learn to evolve with it. And that's the most important thing, to be able to adapt and evolve within your current position, within your current role. And that's important because if you stay still in any field, then you're really going backwards, because the reality is that the world evolves, the world changes. And if your set of skills doesn't change with it, if it doesn't advance with it, then you're literally getting left behind. You're not standing still. At that point, you're going backwards. You know, and then we always compare ourselves to others. Like, am I good enough in terms of, you know, the programming language I'm learning right now? Am I going to be able to learn it fast enough to be competitive and to be, you know, wanted in a job role? Will I get hired? You know, it seems like this person's better at coding than I am, or they're a better programmer. They've done it longer. They started a year earlier. We tend to compare ourselves a lot to other people. I mean, it's human nature. We see what we see. We hear what we hear, and then we compare. Where do we position ourselves? Where do we stand in relation to that person? And it's a double-edged sword, because you do want to be able to know where you currently stand. But you also don't want to put fear into your mind to the point that you hold yourself back. You don't want to compare yourself so much that you feel you cannot advance in what you're learning. I mean, it's common to feel lost. And you have to think about it this way. What I like to think about is the fact whenever I feel lost, what I like to do is think of myself as an explorer. I like to reframe the thought process itself. I'm lost because nobody else has gone through this path. And that might not be true because obviously there's a lot of people in all of our current situations right now. But I like to reframe it in my mind and say that I'm like an explorer blazing a new path where there is no charted territory, where there is no map, there is no path for me to go down. I'm the one creating that path. And it's the path for myself. And even if your path and my path are very similar, we all have different variables within our lives. We all have different life situations, life circumstances. So it's important to take a lot of things into context and to try to really determine why you're feeling the way you feel. Is it because of all the news articles? Is it because of all the burnout in terms of different libraries and frameworks, the technological advances that take place on a daily basis, where a new library or framework comes out that seems to be the must-use tool in order to get your job done, and oh my God, you used that library that came out yesterday, and then forget about it. You're so obsolete at this point. It came out 24 hours earlier. And wait, you're still using it? Come on. Yeah, it's exhausting. There's always a new tool. There's always a new product for us to buy into. And that's just how technology is. It's always evolving, always changing. Everybody has an idea of how to do something a little bit different. And that's very true in the world of programming, because if you give 10 programmers the same type of job or the same task to perform, they're going to give you 10 different possible solutions because they have a different way of doing things. And yeah, we may use similar types of structures. Some will use different types of programming paradigms, functional programming, object-oriented programming, or procedural programming in order to get the job done. Some will use one language, another one will use another language, because there's some overlap between what some languages can do, right? And then when it comes to the libraries and frameworks, that's exhausting, just trying to keep up with it. You know, those same 10 programmers may go back and forth within their own minds, you know, on 20 different types of libraries or frameworks to use. Should I use this one? Should I use that one? Should I use Node.js? Should I use Bun.js? Or should I use Dino? What should I use? Yeah, it's tough. So what I like to do, and reason why I make a lot of these videos on this channel, is because it's something that impacts us all. You know, when it comes to stuff that I'm working on, I always take a look at what others are doing in order to get a better sense of, is how I'm doing it the best way? And it's really relative because it all depends on how you're measuring what is best. Is it more performant? Is it more secure? Is it more functional? Is it easier to understand for the user? Is it easier to maintain? Is it more verbose? Is it well documented? Is it future-proof? Is it modular? Is it easy to alter later on when something different comes down the horizon? You know, so determining if something is better is really dependent on what you define as better. You know, just because something's more performant doesn't mean it's better, because it might be performant because it's missing some security layers that's very important for it to be secure. But I think it's good to take a look at other projects, especially within the same type of work that I'm doing, so that way I can get a comparison, get an idea of how others are doing some similar type of work. And what I try to remind myself is that I'm just one person. You know, I'm not a team of 100 people working on the same project. So when you have a lot of collaboration, you're going to have a lot of varied ideas. And that has its pros and cons, because they say if you have too many chefs in the kitchen, you know, you're going to mess up the dish, right? But at the same time, if everybody works together and you have a very seamless workflow, and you're part of a good cohesive unit, then that's when miracles happen. Now, some other reasons why people feel lost in life as a programmer or as a creator or whatever it is your position is, you know, it could be because you don't have good work-life balance, especially when you're working remotely, when you're working from home, when you're a freelancer, when you're working in isolation. It's very easy to get isolated. So that's why it's important for you to have a good network of people that you can touch base with. And they don't have to necessarily be other programmers. In fact, it's probably good to, you know, have some people that you're close to that don't care about programming at all. That way you get to just have different types of conversations. On the flip side, and the counter argument to that, I like to do this a lot, play the contrarian role with myself. It's important to have other people that you can chat about your ideas. But the essence is you have to have a balance. You have to be able to know when you're working and when to turn off the job. The thing is, if you're in the middle of doing something completely different and you have a great idea, you have to be ready to jot down that idea. And sometimes that's when your best ideas come to the top of your mind, when you're not even trying to find them. And that tends to happen in life, right? You start looking for something, you're looking intently, you're trying to see where you left your keys at, and you just can't find them. And all of a sudden you start doing something else and there it goes, you found them. Same thing with ideas. You're thinking about a project, and you can't see the forest through the trees. Sometimes you need a bird's eye view. Sometimes you have to be doing something completely different in order for you to be able to get a better sense of what needs to be done in that project you're working on. That's why if you're feeling like you're kind of lost or you're feeling burnt out, it depends on how bad the situation is, but that might be a time for you to go for a walk. Maybe go see some friends, go hang out. Maybe veg out a little bit in front of the TV. You might think it'll hurt your productivity, and if you do a little bit too much of it, then yeah. I'm not saying that you should take a month off. Maybe it won't be too bad to, if you have the capability to take a month and travel and see new places, talk to new people, that could be exciting, that could be rewarding. And if you have that capability, then, by all means. But what I'm saying is that if you're feeling like you're diving in too head first into a project and you're doing nothing else but that project, then maybe it's time to do something a little bit different. Break up your routine. And that's another thing. If you get a routine so strict in terms of you're always doing the exact same things, day in, day out, it's almost like Groundhog Day. It could get boring and it could become an issue. So that's why it's important for you to break up your routine as much as you can when you feel like it's becoming counterproductive. And the thing is, we all get lost. Everyone gets lost at some point in time. Sometimes I'm driving around. It happened when I went on my road trip. I traveled the US with my family and we went across 26 different states. From New York to California, down the coast of California, and then came back through the southern route of the US and made our way back home. Took a couple of weeks, took several weeks, and a couple of times, we had GPS, we had navigation, we had our cell phones, but yeah, you take a wrong turn. Sometimes the technology is not as fast as it should be, or sometimes you don't have as much coffee as you should, and you get lost, but it's okay, because there's always somebody around to ask directions, and that's important, to have the ability to talk to somebody. Even if you're just commenting to them online, if you have a friend online that you chat with often, it's better if you meet up with people because you get that physical connection. And ultimately, you just gotta understand that you're not alone. Even as isolated as you might feel, working the way you do, just reach out to somebody. So the issue of feeling lost, it impacts everyone. It impacts a lot of people. Some people are more open to it or more honest about it than others. Some are more stoic and don't really share their feelings. But at the end of the day, we're not Vulcans. We're human beings and we have feelings, we have emotions. And even the most stoic of us all, outwards appearance may not necessarily reflect what's happening inside. So I make these videos because I think it's something that is not spoken about a lot. It's not spoken about often enough, and it has to be embraced and understood. The fact that you can reach out to people, the fact that you're not alone, the fact that your fears and your concerns, they're warranted because we're fed all these issues on a daily basis with news articles and headlines saying everything that they say in terms of jobs being lost, layoffs happening, this and that, this and that. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. Obviously, layoffs happen. Obviously, there's changing times. Obviously, there's things we have to be mindful of. We have to adapt. And that's what I tell people. Be ready to adapt. Integrate some of these new technologies into your workflow. Make sure you understand how they work and what the benefits of them are and what the limitations of them are. Because a lot of people, most people know that AI right now hallucinates. It gets it right a good amount of time, but doesn't necessarily get it right all of the time. And sometimes it gives you an answer that's good enough, but is not the best. And that's where you and your creativity and your know-how and your debugging and your, testing and configuring and just playing around with the different types of technologies, that's where you can determine if what's being generated by the AI is a good fit. And I think that's going to be the case for a very long time. Like I tell people all the time, AI is not coming for your jobs. AI is coming for the jobs of the people who don't prepare for what AI can provide. So even if you're a devout follower of Marcus Aurelius, of Seneca, of Zeno, and of all these other Stoic philosophers, your emotions, your feelings, they still exist. And knowing how to manage them, especially as a programmer, because you got to remember, our whole entire workflow is based on how good we are at problem solving. If we're good problem solvers, then we can do very well in our jobs. But our mindset matters. If you're feeling lost, if you're feeling like you lack direction, or if you're feeling burnt out, or if you're feeling like an imposter, or if you feel like there's no opportunity for you long term, or that your job role is going to be phased out or taken over or automated, then it's hard to really solve problems. Your mindset matters. So the number one skill as a programmer probably isn't learning or mastering a programming language, probably isn't the whole entire idea of mastering your tools. It's about mastering your mind, understanding your mindset, and how can you take control. Because at the end of the day, we think we have control, but if we listen to the naysayers, if we listen to the doomsdayers, and to the people saying that everything is almost over, then it's easy to just throw up our hands and tap out. But in the meantime, and when I say that, I mean for the next 5, 10 years or more, there are going to be those who see the opportunity, who understand that these are tools. And if we learn how to use them, we're going to build better and stronger foundations. And the stronger our foundations, the better the overall structure will be. All right, so I just wanted to share my thoughts on the idea of why programmers and people in general feel lost in the world nowadays, and why you don't have to feel lost. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to share your experiences down below, please do so. And as always, thanks for watching and happy coding. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.